What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota and Danny Abdeljabbar. What's up, man? How are you?
Chilling, man. As per usual. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Honestly, I'm not really too much in the mood for small talk today. I don't really have any small talk to really offer.
Yeah.
Besides, like, hey, still the same place where we were at, right?
Yeah, basically.
Any movement on the Western Front?
No, not really.
Yeah, not really. Except I guess we have a new landmark as far as deaths in this country.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that later for sure.
But I guess we've been talking a lot about like domestic stuff lately, and not too much about foreign policy, which we typically talk about. So I figure we'd talk about some stories that are going on in the world and maybe take some people's mind off coronavirus or COVID-19, because it gets kind of tired covering this over and over and over and over again. Like, I'm sure people want to forget about this for at the very least an hour and a half of their time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about North Korea. Another news.
Just a light subject.
Let's find some sunshine in North Korea, because that's the happiest place on earth, right?
Yeah.
It's the place where dreams come true. Have you ever seen North Korean propaganda?
I mean, I've seen a lot of it. What are you referring to specifically?
Just all of it. Like, apparently the North Korean soccer team beat the American soccer team like 50-1 or something like that.
Men's or women's?
The men's team. They don't give a shit about.
All right. Well, that's possible.
Yeah, maybe that is possible, right?
Yeah.
Then there was like there's a, I don't know if it was a U.S. soccer team. I forget the exact propaganda point, but it was something along that lines where the soccer team scored a ridiculous amount of goals against a good team and won the World Cup. And
yeah, like they scored 57 goals against Germany, and yeah.
Yeah. And there's another one where they blew up an American cruiser.
Yeah, sure.
They showed like a picture of an American cruiser and like, we just annihilated them. Everyone praise your dear leader.
That's hilarious.
There's a lot of goofy ones about Japan as well, because that was their main
nemesis. Yeah.
Nemesis back in the day.
That's their historical nemesis.
They liberated themselves from the Japanese Empire to become, the great state of North Korea. But yeah, I guess the main thing that everyone has probably heard by now is that Kim Jong-Un is dead.
He's dead. Man, we're gonna have to find out.
Kim Jong-Un is dead. He choked on a Krispy Kreme donut, apparently. Right?
A Krispy Kreme donut.
A Krispy Kreme donut. Usually they go down pretty smooth and soft, right?
I mean, not when you're trying to inhale the thing whole.
Yeah. He wasn't chewing.
No, he needs to.
He forgot to chew.
He needs to masticate more.
He needs to masticate. I don't know what that word means.
It means to chew.
What is that? I don't know what that word means. Yeah, but apparently, I mean, this rumor has been going around for the past week or so, about past 2 weeks or so, that Kim Jong has been in grave danger, and apparently, well, this is how everything started. So let's peel this back and let's kind of fill people in if they're just hearing about this. So CNN reported that Kim was in grave danger on April 21st, so last week. And apparently this was after a botched surgery. And the source was a undisclosed U.S. official. Then an anchor from MSNBC, Katie Tur, tweeted the same day, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is brain dead, according to 2 U.S. officials.
Brain dead?
Yeah, he's brain dead. I mean, we all know he was brain dead. But,
but not in that way, right?
Not in that way. He recently had cardiac surgery and slipped into a coma, according to one U.S. current U.S. official.
Oh, really?
I mean, just having cardiac surgery and slipping into a coma, does that cut off oxygen to your brain? I guess it depends on what goes wrong with the surgery, right?
Yeah, and I think you can actually be put into a medically induced coma for things like that, too, if it's not going well.
Well, that tweet was deleted because there was nothing to verify that,
Right, but I
or
mean, yeah,
nothing to
it's
verify the sources. So MSNBC had her, I guess, had her delete that. And then TMZ pushed out an article with the headline, "Kim Jong-Un is dead or reportedly dead." So you had three outlets, two of them major cable networks, CNN and MSNBC, uh, broadcasting that he dead or reporting that he died.
he dead.
He dead, he dead. And then you have TMZ to go along with that,
Uh,
TMZ, which is a tabloid.
they're a bastion of news. What are you talking about?
TMZ is a big old tabloid, um, that falls around celebrities, and
I mean, Kim Jong Un's a celebrity in a certain kind of way, right?
they do some politics, but most of what they do is like sports gossip and celebrity gossip and Hollywood stuff, and hide in trash cans and take pictures of Russell Crowe and get him pissed off so he punches them in the face so they have a story,
Yeah, right.
along that lines. But they reported that he was dead. All the sources were anonymous, so obviously none of them were confirmed. And in addition, South Korean outlets were reporting it as well, that he had heart surgery, and the heart surgery was botched,
Yep.
apparently from like with a surgeon with a shaky hand.
Well, I
That's
mean,
kind of
any surgeon that's going to be doing any kind of work on dear leader Kim is going to have a shaky hand. Like, can you imagine like the stakes for that? Like, if you fuck up, you're dead. Like, you're so dead.
It's not just your dead, but your
Like,
entire family.
yeah, like everybody you know is dead.
Is like they're outcast. They're probably dead, or like their whole the town that he's from
Just for good measure, everybody in his town,
is dead, or thrown into a labor camp, or
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 both.
or
They're going to
whatever,
kill you and then throw
or
you
like
into labor camp.
or the people are forced to like rise up and find the family of the murderer, of the botched surgeon, of the surgeon who botched the biggest surgery of his life. But he apparently, that's what the South Korean outlet said. When was the last time we saw Kim Jong Un alive? Is the first question that you should probably ask.
Right.
And that was on April 12th. So about 3 weeks ago, his picture was taken by North Korean state media, and the reason why people started getting suspicious was that he started missing these major holidays. So
Big
he
ones.
yeah, big ones. So he missed his father's birthday, which is a national holiday, Son's Day.
Grandfather.
No, it was his father's birthday
No, I
that
thought
he
it was his
missed.
grandfather's 108th birthday.
Was it? I thought
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
it was his father's birthday, Son's Day, because that's also a holiday.
yeah. No,
Mi-
it was his grandfather's
uh,
108th birthday.
Okay, so either way, he missed a major holiday that he normally would have been at, and he missed a parliament meeting, which I wasn't really aware. I mean, North Korea's parliament's not really a parliament, um, not in the sense that you would think like Britain was, and he also didn't attend like a weapons launch, which
That's
is
a big
usually
thing. Yeah,
that's a big thing when he has his sunglasses on and he's laughing
yeah. He likes
like
to smile at the big, rocket go boom.
yeah. I go, we like this. You go over there. I will test it on you. You say this go fast. You stand right there. That's what he does, right? That's how that's his preferred method of assassinating people,
Yeah,
or
no,
or
I heard that
getting.
he like strapped some guy to like something and then like fired an anti-air gun at him to execute him. Like an anti-air gun, a gun that's intended to shoot down planes. That shit would blow your foot like your entire body up. It's like so totally unnecessary.
I can definitely imagine him just walking around like a carrier, and just going like, "Hey, you, come here." Like, so you say this gun go fast? You stand there. I tested it. And then, uh, so he missed Son's Day. He missed his weapons launch, or Grandfather Day, whatever. He missed a major holiday. And Reuters, they also reported that China sent a team of medical experts to provide him with some type of medical assistance. But again, the sources that all these outlets have used have been unconfirmed, or at the very least anonymous. So, given all this information that is obviously not confirmed yet regarding his death, what do you think? Do you think he's dead or do you think he's alive?
He's probably alive, to be honest. There's some reasons for this that I think so, but I think you're totally right. I mean, like it's anyone's guess at this point because they're a hermit state. You know, they're not like an open free public. I think it took them 4 days to report on Kim Jong Il's death when he died. You know, they were denying that for 4 days, and that was then. And like, it is North Korea, but you got to remember that they do have smartphones and they do have some limited access to the internet. And like communications now is better for them. So keeping it a secret for a couple days would be harder now in North Korea than it would in, say, back when Kim Jong Il died, right? Now, I want to underscore this by saying that it's totally not like the United States, right? Like, no one's tweeting about it, right? But, information does move quicker and it does flow a lot easier than it did, several years ago when Kim Jong-Un took power. So the idea that, I mean, and it's been several days since these rumors have been flying around. So the idea that they're keeping it a secret for longer than Kim Jong-il when he died is probably unlikely. So there's that. But I mean, this is anybody's guess. It's, some people are saying that it was heart surgery. Some people saying like it's vegetative state that he's in. Some people think he's dead. I read this one thing that he was injured in a missile test, on like a weapons test. Right?
I heard that too.
And like maybe that's why he's out of commission or whatever. I heard another thing that said that he was escaping because of coronavirus, which I think is probably pretty probable. According to North Korea, they don't have a single case of coronavirus. So that's utter bullshit. Due to their proximity to China and their trade relations with China and like the black market and the porous, border with China, there's no fucking way that they don't have any coronavirus. Also, I read a report that this said that they have like an increase in pneumonia cases, but like, come on. It's not pneumonia.
Well, if China, again, this wasn't a confirmed story, but if this Reuters report is right, which, I mean, typically Reuters is pretty reliable. I read Reuters every day.
Yeah.
It makes sense that a team of Chinese medical experts would go over there if he had COVID-19 or if he just wanted counsel over like maybe someone close to him who had it, because it makes sense that he would isolate himself or he would be isolated by the government there if there was just a security guard. I heard that a security guard had it. That was like one of the other rumors I heard, and that's why he was in isolation.
Yeah, he's like social distancing.
But who fucking knows, really? Yeah. Like he could be dead as far as we know.
It's possible. I mean, maybe one person that would know would be our dear leader, President Donald Trump. So he actually has been kind of wishy-washy about this case. So initially, he said that, and I'll quote this here: "I've had a very good relationship with him. I can only say this: I wish him well." So it's like, what? What do you know? And then later he added, "I do know he's doing, relatively speaking, ... You'll probably be hearing in the not so distant future." Which either means that he knows something and he's just not telling us, or it means he doesn't know shit and he's just saying it, right?
I mean, he may not know shit. Like, he might be just hearing what we're hearing.
Right.
It's like someone...
He's hearing what Hannity's telling him.
Yeah, you could have heard it on Fox. Yeah. That Kim Jong-un may be sick. And he's like, I got some intel. Yeah, no one else knows about it. So I heard...
My buddy Sean told me.
So it's... He may maybe, I mean, they probably do know something, but again,
maybe they know. I don't know.
You're not going to find out. You're not going to find out until there's like a succession order if he's actually dead or not. And I kind of go along with like I doubt he's dead right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some more stuff, I guess to wrap up on Trump, he also said that if somebody else were in his position, that we'd be at war with North Korea right now, which is just like, silly. But
What he said, if in his position or
yeah, like he
referring to
said, if
Kim
like I
Jong-un?
don't know, if Hillary Clinton, as an example, was president right now, that we'd be at war with North Korea. He didn't specify Hillary Clinton. Now that I'm thinking about it, we probably would be at war with North Korea if we had Hillary Clinton right now. But he's saying if anybody else was the president right now. Anyway, so but there's other things. So like North Korea's one of North Korea's closest neighbors, South Korea, is pretty much saying like, nope, he's alive, he's fine, he's in Wonsan, Wosan. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. And like when you hear about this, like the first thing I think is like either A, they probably know something because they have to have some kind of bilateral communications with the North, just to try and de-escalate shit. Like a big deal like this, I'm sure, as reclusive as North Korea is, I think at a very least they'd probably give an indication to South Korea.
Well, South Korea has artillery guns pointed right at Seoul, so
And North Korea has
yeah,
artillery.
excuse me.
Right.
They have North Korean guns pointed at Seoul.
Right.
So I mean,
I just like to believe that despite the tension and the conflict, that they would probably say something in like a secure channel, to be like, "Yo, heads up, like this dude is dead. Please don't invade us." Or like, "Heads up, this dude is dead. If you try something, we're gonna fucking kill you." So it's possible that they have those communications, but a few things popped up recently, and that's just some like satellite imagery of this complex in Wonsan. It's like a resort for the for the Kim family there. And I'm just going to show you this. So if you're listening in a podcast, you're not going to be able to see it. Google it or watch the live stream. But if you're watching, here's like one picture of the Wonsan thing here, and it shows a bunch of cool shit. Like, place looks pretty awesome, actually. They got a theater and a basketball court. They got a rec center. They've got like a villa that was recently built, and they got the old Kim Jong-il building. And they got a shooting range and a covered yacht berth. So I'm guessing like it's a yacht garage. He also has like a 50-meter long yacht, right? And it was seen moving recently. But what was super important about this is that there was some sat imagery of this train here that arrived a couple of days after we started hearing about things going to shit. And it's been there since. And this appears to be one of the trains that the North Korean dictators use. For those who are unfamiliar, North Korean dictators don't like to fly, because they're afraid that they'll get shot out the sky, and that's understandable. So they always take trains, right? So anytime he goes to like China, for example, he'll take a train. They fly very, very seldomly. So this is probably his armored train. This could be an advanced decoy. They probably just sent the train over here. But Occam's razor, the simplest answer is probably the truest answer. From the satellite imagery, from North Korea saying so, and from the fact that they can't, from the fact that I don't think that there's a reasonable expectation that they could have kept this a secret for this long. I think he's probably not dead.
Well, we don't even know if that he's actually having any type of heart surgery or not.
Right.
Like
we don't know.
That's hearsay as well.
Right.
Maybe he is. I mean, he does have a lot of health issues, right?
Yeah, he has a ton, right? So we can go through some of those. So I think the first biggest issue is that he's a smoker, heavy smoker. He's done it for at least 10 years. And that's just evidence.
Is that being shown on screen? This?
No.
Okay. It's a picture of it, swastika.
No. So he's been in photos for at least 10 years, shown smoking. So dude smokes pretty heavy, and like even his wife has been asking him to like stop. But that was like probably a joke. She doesn't tell him shit. So the second thing that's clear is that he has a strong like family history of cardiovascular disease and stroke. So both his grandfather Kim Il Sung and his father Kim Jong Il both died of a sudden cardiac death, and his father suffered a stroke in August 2008, and that was 3 years before he died in 2011, right? So, you know, your grandfather has it, your father has it. Like, it's in your genetics. Like, you're gonna be predisposed to this shit. Smoking certainly doesn't fucking help, right? And then the third thing is the elephant in the room, which is his weight, right? So if you look at photos of, Kim Un, excuse me, when he was in his like 20s versus pictures, of him
Because he
today.
was a
And
stud when he was in his 20s, right?
no, but there's a clear difference. So today he's maybe 36, maybe 37. That's actually not clear. Like, we don't know if his birthday was like 84 or 85. We don't know. 83 or 84, excuse me. Nobody knows. But he is clearly obese, but not just obese. He's like morbidly obese. And the definition of morbid obesity is a body mass index, or BMI, greater than 40. So there's some South Korean reports that say he's 5'7" and weighs 300 pounds, which would give him a BMI of 47.
Really? You think he weighs 300 pounds?
I mean, look at him.
It's hard to say by eye, but I always knew that he was heavy, but I always figured he was a short guy who may be like 260 or something like that.
I mean, even if he was a short guy at 260,
If you're tall and you're 300 pounds, you're still a house and you're still morbidly obese.
yeah,
300 pounds is a lot of weight.
right.
Like, I'm 6'5" and I weigh about 230.
Yeah, and I'm 6'1" and I weigh like 190.
That's fat.
Not as fat as this guy. Trust me, your BMI is not 47, right? So this is just like people eyeballing it and like checking against what they know. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this shit. But based on that assumption that he is morbidly obese, right? It's likely that he probably has diabetes or pre-diabetes, definitely elevated blood pressure or hypertension, and definitely elevated cholesterol or hypercholesterolemia. Sorry, I don't speak medical. And then the last thing, I didn't know shit about this, so if I sound like an idiot, take it as it is. But apparently Kim Jong-un demonstrates symptoms consistent with what's called focal dystonia, which is a neurological disease that causes involuntary movements. And they say that this explains the frequent odd posturing of his left hand when he's sitting down. That might be a stretch, but if it is true, that probably wouldn't impact his long-term health risks. It's just, talking shit about Kim Jong-un. Jesus, these guys, I don't know, can't keep them straight. So yeah, I mean, he has plenty of health issues, right? So I think it's
fat. He's a
reasonable.
fat, short guy with high blood pressure who smokes a lot of cigarettes,
and who has a family history of
who has a family history of different diseases that can kill you as a young man.
Right.
So he is definitely at risk, but that's still pretty young, to die out of the blue. You would have to think that it would happen. I mean, people start dropping dead, I guess, from these types of issues at really any time, but I guess that is more prevalent when, you're hitting past that, 40 mark or getting over to the upper 50s. So it would be kind of rare for him to frankly drop dead unless he was unless there seems to be like some mistake in surgery or some.
Right. Well, I mean, another element to this is like the coronavirus, right? So I'm not a medical professional, so, take it or leave it. But I read some reports about linked to coronavirus and like cardiovascular issues. And, part of that is like you can't breathe, like you have like shortness of breath, tightness in the chest, which are very close to, cardiovascular issues. So it's possible that maybe he got coronavirus and that exacerbated those pre-existing conditions that were wrought for him to, have a heart attack or something like that, or a stroke or whatever. So there's always, it's coronavirus time, so you can't rule out coronavirus either, so it's possible.
But that just kind of leads to the theory that, I mean, he's aware that of his conditions that he has, and he probably understands that he's at extra risk. So that's why he's quarantining himself so he doesn't have contact with really anyone.
Right.
And it's not like North Korea feels like they have some obligation to have some contact with the West and say, hey, don't worry, he's all good. Like, don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
Like, they don't give a shit if we know or not. If they're just.
I mean, they don't give a shit if we know or not, but they do give a shit if we presume that he's dead, right? Because that could be a security risk for him. And that, I guess, that the question that we can kind of talk about is like, what happens if he died? Even if it's like hypothetically, like what could happen. I read an interesting article on the national interest. I don't agree with all of it, but I figured we can talk about some of the main points and just like debate on whether or not, like what could happen if he died. So this one article was talking about how a sudden exit by Kim Jong-Un could lead North Korea to a more democratic and peaceful government, but it could also lead to the country to go in the opposite direction. So it's like, way to take no position.
What would the opposite direction be?
Just more autocracy, more like dictatorship.
I mean, how can you even how could there even be more dictatorship?
I don't know, man.
I can't even throw a reference. Like, I can't even throw a past reference because it's as bad as you get. It's as bad as it gets in North Korea, even compared to history. Like, you can compare it to like Stalin or
Mao. Yeah.
But it's.
I mean, he is winning.
Just as bad. Like,
yeah,
they have
he is
labor
winning.
camps. There's massive starvation.
Yeah.
There's there's a police state. There's secret police everywhere. There's
extreme isolation.
Snitches, extreme isolation. It's as bad as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
The worst place on earth.
Like I said,
government.
I didn't agree with everything this article said, but it brought us some interesting points that I wanted to talk about. So one of the first things is that if we look at Polity 5 data on the 30 greatest year-to-year leaps towards democracy after the Cold War, they posit that none of those changes could have been triggered by the death of an autocrat. So they write, in almost 1/3 of the cases of democratization, the trigger has been the ending of conflict. So as an example, political chaos, even foreign threats, anything that'll destabilize, the situation and foreign speculation of, especially around Kim Jong-un's death, could actually strengthen autocracy or dictatorship in North Korea. So he's saying in 1/3 of the cases of people who move towards democracy after an autocracy, it was because of an end of a conflict, not because of foreign, like, bullying. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think that, if we bully them, they're going to be more of a dictatorship?
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, I don't know what the U.S. can really do to bully them or put a more hardline stance.
We can try and invade them
over the past couple. Well, that's leading with a carrot,
right,
rather than leading with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think that North Korea. I don't really think there's too many games to play with them because there's really no military solution for North Korea. And we've already sanctioned pretty much all aspects of any industry they have besides their agriculture industry. That's the one thing that we don't sanction in North Korea. So if you take this back, like, South Korea, I think, had it right. And they elected Moon to really bring peace, to end the Korean War. And the reason why is because they have to live under this every single day. Like, a lot of in Asia, like my perception in Asia is that South Koreans have been way more into politics than, let's say, the Japanese, because Japanese are kind of just living. They're not living as under such intense pressure as the South Koreans are, with artillery faced at their capital city and, a nuclear weapons program. So Moon was elected. And also, like, President Park before in South Korea, I mean, she was arrested and she was impeached and tossed in jail.
Right.
So South Koreans,
they know how to democracy.
Yeah, they know how to. I guess they know how to democracy, or democracy, right, or whatever. They have a liberal government in the Western sense, but they elected Moon to really put the platform in place, the Sunshine Policy, and the Sunshine Policy was basically based off the Aesop's fables. You know, the North Wind and the Sun.
Right.
You know, I think you've definitely heard of it before. It's like the sun and the wind. They see a guy with a jacket on, and they make a bet who can take take this guy's coat off. And the wind tries to blow the guy's coat away, and the guy just clings to it and doesn't let it go. And then the sun goes like, "Let me try this," and he just heats up a bit, and the guy takes his coat off on his own. So the point is that the more that you threaten someone,
right? Don't try to snatch the coat.
Yeah, the more reluctant they are going to be to do what you ask of them. Threatening someone and pushing someone is often like very counterproductive. So the Sunshine Policy basically says that, we tried 50 years of sanctions. We tried war games on their border. We tried threatening them. And all they do is continue to build weapons and increase their military and all of that.
Right.
So why not why not try to carrot instead of the stick this time? And they actually had tried this before the late 90s, before the six-party talks. And the six-party talks, they were essentially a series of meetings between both Koreas, China, Russia, the U.S., and Japan. And the goal was to get North Korea to denuclearize. And they would do this by giving them economic rewards for each step that they would take in denuclearization. Like, even during the talks, if you can remember the last talk between the U.S. and North Korea, there was a sign. It was in Japanese. It was posted by the Japanese media, and it actually listed the three talks. It listed the stages of how to introduce North Korea into, the normal world. And it was essentially like steps would be taken from the North Korean angle, and they would get sanction relief. So during these talks, for instance, if they stopped enriching uranium, they would get sanction relief on something, something like that.
Right.
I forget the exact specifics of what the talks were, but that was a basic premise. So South Korea, North Korea, China, Russia, they all agreed, but the U.S. and Japan, they didn't. And the reason why was because during the talks, Japan found out that North Korea had abducted 17 Japanese citizens, and North Korea admitted this in a gesture of honesty. And they gave them death certificates of the people who they claimed died in captivity. When Japan found this out and they received those death certificates, they pulled out, and the U.S. pulled out with them. And after that, that's when the U.S. started making more threats. And this is at the same time, like this, in the 2000s, as you go into like the 2000s, the U.S. making threats is a lot more credible. Throughout 1990 to where we are right now, because how many governments has the U.S. toppled? There's Iraq, Libya, an attempt on Syria. There's a track record there. So the rationale of North Korea is like, why would I demilitarize when they're overthrowing governments left and right? So North Korea's deterrent from being invaded is to launch nukes.
Or build them at the very least.
Or build them. Or even just have artillery pointed at Seoul. Because, again, we talked about this a lot. Like, there really isn't a military solution, even if you take away their nuclear bombs, their nuclear weaponry, because their conventional weapons can kill millions of people across the border.
In minutes.
Including not only civilians, but including U.S. troops that are stationed there.
Right.
So
we have like 30,000 there, too, right? We got a shit ton.
It's basically a hostage situation. So, as soon as you hit them, they're going to launch or annihilate maybe millions of people in South Korea. And they can do that without nukes. And THAAD's not going to do shit.
Right.
So when Trump started talking earlier, before these talks happened about the bloody nose policy, I think that was a word that she used, like bloody nose policy. That was crazy. If there was a military solution to North Korea, there probably would have been one by now.
Yeah, we would have tried it.
I feel like the U.S. would have been confident in trying it.
Yeah, we would have tried it.
Especially in the period where it was basically like a blood orgy in U.S. foreign policy.
Right.
So, um, I mean,
So
that's kind of what I think. They're counterproductive at the end of the day.
well, so let's talk about a different dimension here, because I think we agree, bullying them is not going to really do anything. But another point that they bring up in this article was that, foreign support to an autocrat sometimes initiates change towards democracy. And they bring up this one case where, in Eastern Europe, a bunch of the Eastern European bloc countries that were previously Soviet Union, they were being propped up and helped, and they democratized pretty quickly. After the fall of the Soviet Union and getting support from them. But he also points out that, the opposite this probably wouldn't help North Korea, because China currently does a whole lot to support North Korea, and according to him, encourages greater international openness and political responsiveness, and they offer them a lot of support. Nevertheless, we're not seeing them trend towards democracy at all. So he argues that ending Chinese support to North Korea wouldn't actually help North Korea democratize in the same way that ending the Soviet influence in Eastern Europe helped Eastern Europe. So, I mean, what do you think China's role is here? If Kim Jong-Un had died, like, what role do you think they play?
I'm not really sure what role they would play. They I mean, I don't think most people really know what role that they would play, because I think China definitely has a strong interest in like maintaining the some type of status quo there, because the last thing that they want is a million North Korean refugees. Like, the things
Right.
that get so crazy that a million North Korean refugees pour into China.
Correct.
So they kind of have the deterrent in that aspect, where they don't want to deal with like a bunch of people who don't speak Chinese in their country. So I guess their main interest is to have them. I guess the ideal goal for them would be to have a stable regime there, but and not go into chaos, and not be under the thumb of the U.S. is what I think that they're uh, what they would want as far as like a strategy there. But their role, I don't think that they would appoint anyone there, or they would lead the way, or even have direct consultation with who would be the leader next. I mean, it's like a monarchy there anyway, so most likely it's going to extend out to, the sister, or
Yeah, we'll get
one
we'll
of the
get into the
uncles, or
successors, yeah, for sure. But I think I somewhat disagree, because, like, as you said, they're interested in keeping a semblance of the status quo, and like Kim Jong Un's death could definitely rattle a lot of stuff, and there's going to be in my opinion, there's going to be refugees, if he dies, like, people are going to flee, in that situation. And I think that another kind of angle that we can look at that was also pointed out here is kind of domestic popular pressure. So, if Kim Jong Un dies, right, there's going to be, we'll talk about the successors in a moment here, but there's no clear successor right now. Like, he doesn't have a child that's old enough to take the throne, so to speak, right? So there's going to be some political, infighting, almost like the 2020 Democratic primary, for who gets to take the crown. And I think what he points out in this article here is that in Indonesia and Myanmar, as an example, they were previously communist and moved towards democracy, that the generals who endorsed democracy first survived politically, right? But in North Korea, we're not seeing the type of civil unrest that we saw in Myanmar and in Indonesia, right? Like, right now, it's pretty quiet for the most part. Like, they, say what you want about them, they're a terrible fucking country, and their government's terrible, but they keep their people quiet, right? And there's no riots. I mean, that could change if Kim Jong-Un dies, but we didn't see that when Kim Jong-il died. So there's no thought in my mind that something would have changed there. But what will change inevitably, I think, is the fact that they're going to have to think about who gets to take the country. And I think if it depends on how North Korea feels about what's their biggest priority, right? If they think it's a security problem, meaning like if they think that changing hands from Kim Jong Un to someone else, not his like bloodline or whatever, is going to present a security problem, meaning like maybe South Korea or the United States or maybe even China decides to move in on them because they think they're weakened, then they're going to appoint somebody who's like a hardline military dude, you know, to head up the country. But if they feel like, you know, it's an economic thing that their main challenge is, which they probably should, then they'll probably appoint somebody that's going to have, you know, better strengths and diplomatic ties abroad, specifically in China. I don't know if there's going to be any situation where they think that democracy is their biggest priority.
No, they're not. I don't think they're rushing to become like a Western style democracy in Asia, like South Korea and Japan are. And I
Right.
don't even think that's possible. In a lot of those countries, I mean, the reason why they transitioned from communism to, you know, free commerce type systems is because the systems that they had were terrible.
Right.
They
And
were
theirs
poor.
is, you know,
They're
like
terrible.
they have massive poverty. Like we don't have accurate data on this, but like it's very clear that they're probably one of the poorest countries per capita in the world. Like without a
North
doubt.
Korea.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, in North Korea, when millions of people starved in North Korea,
Still starve.
they still starved, but it was worse. Like right after the Soviet Union fell and they
Mm-hmm.
stopped getting as enough. A lot of these countries that were getting financial aid from the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union fell, like these governments were fucked.
Yeah.
Like they started starving,
Mm-hmm.
and um, there was really nothing they could do because they were also being sanctioned besides to create some type of military. You know, a good analogy, you know, what I like to think of North Korea as is kind of like it's kind of like the Church of Scientology,
Okay. Go
but
on.
as a state.
Okay.
They're like a big Church of Scientology, but a massive state, and they happen to have like military weaponry.
So everything the Church of Scientology wishes they have.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Scientology is probably a little bit wealthier than North Korea,
Yeah, very likely.
based off like the real estate they have in Europe. They're worth like billions of dollars.
So
But what are the unless you have another point to make
no,
on
not
this, like
really.
what are some of the what are some who are some of the major successors?
Right. Okay. Well, traditionally, I mean, we don't have a super long like North Korean history. Like they've not been around for that long. But the first leader was Kim Il Sung. That was, you know, Kim Jong Un's grandfather. You know, he was very much revered for his work, you know, in liberating North Korea. Quote air quotes. And when he died, his son Kim Jong Il came in. But Kim Jong Il was the heir apparent for many years before Kim Il Sung died. Uh, so Kim Jong Un, however, uh, there was some questions about him and his ability to lead, because when Kim Jong Il, Kim Jong Un's dad, died, Kim Jong Un was like 28 years old. You know, he was like a young whippersnapper. You know, and there were a lot of people talking about military coup because they weren't sure, you know, that this is like a good idea. You know, ultimately that didn't happen, and if anything, I think Kim Jong Un used, you know, the doubters and the haters as a means to just ramp up his dictatorship style. Like he's pretty fucking bad. I don't know how to compare him against his father or his grandfather in terms of like who was the worst dictator for North Korea, but I think everyone can agree that Kim Jong Un is no, you know, walk in the park in that respect.
I guess the major problem now comes though is that there's no direct um, lineage right now.
Right.
You know, there's no father. There's no realistic possibility of a father to son.
Right.
So it would all branch out to his
Side
his
peoples.
siblings
Right.
or closest family members. So his sister, the lady who got like a lot of media attention because she grilled Mike Pence at the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? You're
Yep.
like, look at this badass. She just grilled Mike Pence. She's just beating Mike Pence at his own game.
Right.
What a badass. I wish she was our leader. Uh, when that was going on, she kind of looks like a White Walker. She's very creepy. She's very creepy looking. Um, she she is one of his closest advisors,
Right. And they're
and
pretty close in age too. I think she's a bit younger though.
she's like a year. She's like 31 or 32 years old. She's
Right.
she's around our age, but she has like a. I guess she was elevated to the ruling body of the Politburo,
Politburo.
Politburo,
Politburo.
Politburo, and she's like, I guess she's had a master class in North Korean politics over the past couple of years, like
Yeah, she's
having,
killing it.
yeah, having these high positions.
By the way, her name is Kim Yo Jong. We haven't said her name at all.
Kim Yo Jong.
Kim Yo Jong.
There's another brother apparently
Yeah, like
though.
a half brother, right?
He is, yeah, but apparently he is not. He's feminine, so it's not.
It's like not a good
They
fit.
don't. He's not a good fit. Like he's more interested in like playing the guitars and his own hobbies and interests. Like he went to the UK for an Eric Clapton concert once, so people don't really see him
I
as a
mean,
good fit.
Kim Jong Il was pretty that way too. Like he had like a giant collection of movies. Like he loved American movies and like shit like that. And he was definitely more interested in like his personal hobbies than leading a country. But um, I don't know.
He
Hard to.
was a film buff. He like directed films, right?
Yeah, he also kidnapped South Korean directors to make films for him, which is fucked up. Um, but yeah, so there's his like other brother. I forget what his name is, but outside of that, there's some other options though, right? And these are probably more realistic options given the state of North Korea. So this one guy, his name is he's the vice marshal Cho Ryong Hae. I'm gonna butcher all of these names, by the way. Due to 70 years old, he was recently promoted to the president of the Presidium of Supreme People's Assembly in 2019. I don't know what the fuck that is, but apparently it's like a nice title, right? So he's technically the country's head of state. So he's like their Mike Pompeo, I guess. I don't know. But he served in North Korea's ruling party for decades. And in 2019, he was sanctioned by the U.S. for human rights abuses. Go figure. But that's like a positive point if you're running for, dictator of North Korea, I feel like, It's like a checkbox that they have. Another one is Pak Pong Ju.
Ping Pong Joe.
Pak Pong Ju. So he's also a member of the Politburo, like Kim's sister. He used to be North Korea's head of state, and he's like a big economy guy. Like he tried to revive the economy by opening up the market. That didn't work out very well. So probably not a good not a good choice. And then there's another guy or girl. I don't actually know. I guess it's a guy. Kim Yong Chol, a vice chairman of the ruling party. He has a bunch of international connections. He's probably quieter than most of these people on this list. He used to work as North Korea's intelligence chief, and he was leading the denuclearization talks with the United States. So in 2018, in May, he actually flew to New York to talk to Mike Pompeo about stopping nuclear testing in the country, and he also went to the White House to talk to President Trump. So he's got a bunch of international, street cred, and that's that's the main players on the list of people that will probably be in line.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing though. The chances of him being dead are pretty slim. You know, here's the thing though. What they really need is somebody who would be open to. I mean, maybe Kim Jong Un would be the closest person to talk to the West, because when you think about it, he was talking to the U.S., but the meetings that we had in place got all screwed up because of John Bolton. Like, remember? So the last meeting, Trump kind of went in with like an all or nothing attitude, and the goal that was in place was a four-step plan that was laid out, and the goal of that summit was to speed up the denuclearization. The first step was to set up a communications, and obviously that had
Right.
already been achieved with South Korea and North Korea in contact. They had a joint Olympics team.
Right.
They had a joint hockey team.
Hmm.
One of their major K-pop bands, they performed in North Korea. South Korea took out those. If you can remember, in the DMZ zone, they had like these loudspeakers
Yeah.
that would be aimed to play at North Korean, possible refugees, saying
Right.
like, you need to leave. They've just say anti-North Korean.
Shit.
I want to say, I don't want to say propaganda, because most of what you say about them are facts. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying leave
Even the
the
true
country.
shit is crazy.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the true shit is crazy enough, but they would have that. They took that speaker down, and of course they met on the DMZ line, and everything seemed like things were progressing. The second step after that was a set of economic cooperation zones, where you would get some South Korean factories in North Korea, and where North Koreans could work.
Right.
And this would potentially set up future tourism for North Korea.
Right.
The two things that would be great for them,
Right. International
work,
money moving in. That's great.
yeah, international money and tourism.
They can go to Wonsan.
There's a mountain in North Korea
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Their
I forget the
sacred
name of it.
mountain.
It's a
Right.
sacred mountain in North
Hmm.
Korea, where I'm sure of there would be a lot of
Sightseeing.
sightseeing and,
Hmm.
and tourists in Korea, South Korea, and probably all over Asia would want to go
Yeah. I
to.
hear it's beautiful. Yeah.
After that, it would be connecting roads and railroads in order to get goods into the country. And the last step would be denuclearization and hopefully normalization. What happened during our previous talks was that Trump went in, they skipped all three steps and went straight to denuclearization.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, though, is that
Just
Trump was
all that
doing a
shit is
good job.
boring.
He
Just
was
give me
doing
the
a good
nukes.
job prior,
Yeah.
and at least talking to him, and at least like making that initial contact. And it
Right.
was just it was very disappointing
Right.
to see that initial good job
Go to waste.
kind of go to waste.
Yeah.
And I'm not really surprised that this happened, because the U.S. really did have all the leverage there. If the
Hmm.
U.S. gives North Korea sanction relief, and North Korea doesn't comply with denuclearization, then they can just pull back on all those sanctions.
Right.
So, it's a lot harder to rebuild a nuclear program than to pull back sanctions.
Sure.
Um, you know, it would cost billions of dollars to do that, which frankly North Korea doesn't really have. So, I mean, I think Trump's state of mind at the time was that we could be patient, but North Korea, the reality is that they're an economic ruin. I'm sure that they're being hit by coronavirus in a way that, I'm surprised that there's not more stuff out on this, to be completely honest.
I'm not surprised
But
that we don't hear more about it because they keep everything quiet, period. So we're never going to know.
I mean, I guess Bibi Netanyahu had to use Hallmark footage to, right?
Yeah.
When he was trying to use footage of their mass deaths or mass graves, he
Yeah.
took movie footage from a Hallmark movie called Pandemic and used that as proof of them, I guess, hiding. So
Yeah.
at least we don't have that going on.
I got an important question for you from Ryan Perella, and he asks, do you believe that this death will translate to a Rothschild-owned central bank for North Korea?
I mean, not really. I don't even think he's dead, to be complete. I mean,
Hypothetically.
I doubt that he's dead, and I don't think that they will ever. Even if he is dead, I don't know how much will actually change there.
Hmm.
So I don't think that like a Rothschild type central bank would be set up in North Korea. I mean, I'm no expert on what their current banking system is right now, so I don't know, maybe that's something that we can
Yeah.
explore.
We're probably not going to find out enough information about it, I think.
Yeah.
um,
Um, but as far what the economic system they have is that they're a communist government that all the treasury and all the revenue goes directly to the state. They don't have industries where a bank could actually lend to. So, um, I mean, they're just a mess. But I mean, for the forlong conclusion, if he did die, if he is dead, I would be surprised. Like I would be pretty taken aback. But
yeah.
it's definitely possible.
Yeah. It's not outside of the realm of, you know, uh, possibility. But I think based on the hour or so of us chatting about it, I think, it's probably more likely that he's not dead. And I rattled off a bunch of reasons why earlier, but, to sum those up, there's just, there's no way they're keeping it secret in their country for this long and us, not finding out about it through, regular channels. And, also there's like some satellite imagery that suggests that perhaps he's at Wonsan. And also South Korea says he's alive. If I'm going to trust anyone in the out of all the news, it's probably South Korea. So, yeah.
So, do you have want to keep on talking about North Korea, or do you want to switch on to some other
Yeah,
topics?
let's talk about some other stuff because there's a bunch of other things going on too.
So, here is something that was super interesting. So, this is something that happened earlier in the month
Right.
that we didn't talk about, but so Iran is on a very close uh, path to complete economic collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So, they requested a $5 billion emergency loan from the IMF. And what's interesting about that is that they have a conservative government that doesn't want to get involved with any potential predatory lending scheme or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this had been the first request in 60 years.
That's a really long time.
Yeah. So this has been the first request in 60 years. So going back to before the Islamic Revolution, and they're getting killed right now. Because they have basically a three-headed dragon. They have sanctions, coronavirus, and oil prices have dropped.
Yeah, I mean that's like three strikes you're out kind of deal.
So their expected oil revenue is going to be half of what they were initially projecting.
Right.
And this loan that they're getting a loan from the IMF is never a good thing, but the White House is trying to block the loan.
Of course they are.
And they're saying that a loan would make it easier for the regime to continue financing its vast network of terrorist groups. They have proxy militias across the Middle East.
I mean, it's not true. Like, it would make it easier for them to do that, but I think they got bigger fish to fry than financing terrorist groups right now.
They have. Yeah, they're just transfer. They're the biggest funder of their biggest state backer of terrors. And they're also at the same time, though, they're saying it's flushed with money, and they don't actually need it.
What, Iran's piggy bank is full right now?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
But they still are asking
They're
for
saying because
money.
The president, because there's certain leaders that have a lot of money and assets in their name and real estate and things like that. There's a really good article on the Quincy Institute of Responsible Statecraft that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
That has more details on a lot of that. But what is interesting is that at the same time, the State Department has said that they're on the brink of collapse. And all we have to do is wait it out because the sanctions have been doing such a great job. The sanctions have been working. So we just got to stay course, and eventually, there'll be a
riot.
There'll be MEK controlling Tehran, So I found that interesting that they are, first they're saying that they have a shitload of money and they don't actually need it for their emergency funds. So they're kind of disregarding any type of humanitarian uh, motive. That we don't need to give them any. We don't need to let them take out an IMF loan. It's not even like foreign aid or anything like that.
Right.
It's not even sanction relief. It's just an IMF loan,
Yeah, we just want
and
money.
we just want to borrow money, and the State Department is still trying to block it under the pretext that they don't need it because they have assets, but at the same time they're on the brink of collapse, and all we have to do is wait out the sanctions. So
Yeah.
it's just such a contradictory message.
There's so many
It just
contradictory
it
messages
just
there.
shows you it
Yeah.
shows you how much horseshit is involved in the policy with Iran.
Yeah. Yeah. On both sides, frankly. Yeah.
Well, the U.S. side is crazy.
Right.
The U.S., Israeli, Saudi side of like the of Iran is 6 months away from building a nuclear weapon. They've been 6 months away for how many years now? That's the major pretext for them to have these sanctions in place, along with them
You know,
supporting Hezbollah.
like I
It's
haven't heard
like
a lot about the bomb recently. Right now, I feel like the most common like hot point is that they're financing
they've
proxy
used that
militias.
they've used that excuse all up. So it's like
Yeah.
everyone doesn't take that serious anymore. It's like, all right, you've already said they've been trying to build a bomb
So
for
what's
so
like the new
long,
reason? Yeah.
and their level of enrichment in uranium is still less than 4%.
Right.
It's like
Which they would need like
3.24%.
97%, right?
It's something like 3.2%. It was a
Hmm.
big move when they said they were going to enrich it, and they enriched it from like
3 to 5.
whatever whatever the enrichment it takes to create electricity to slightly over it.
Hmm.
They didn't move it to what 10% is medical isotopes, and then it
Hmm.
takes 90% to get all the way up to any type of
Bomb.
weapons grade
Right.
uranium,
Hmm.
which would take. I'm no nuclear physicist at all, but I mean, do you have an estimate of how long it would take for?
I don't know how long it would take, but I don't think like the time frame is important. I think because like the process is the same to enrich, electricity uranium and to enrich bomb uranium. Like there's like a new system. I think what is important to note is that we would figure it out pretty quickly that they're enriching highly.
Maybe they should build a nuclear program.
I don't know, man. Don't give them any
I'm I'm
ideas.
I'm not I'm not giving them ideas, but we were talking about that yesterday. I
Yeah,
mean, not our last podcast,
yeah.
and you were saying something about them being you were talking about them trying to cover things up and the Strait of Hormuz and things like that. And
Hmm. Yeah, they're putting a bunch of like weapons and shit in the straits. It looks like they're gearing up for a fight, or maybe they're just flexing. Who knows? Who knows with those guys?
well, those guys, it seems like they don't have many choices because
I mean, they're in kind of a
I
North
don't
Korea
I don't
position
I
right
don't
now.
know what they can really do at this point to get sanction relief other than overthrow their government, because what they're not going to meet the demands of the unrealistic demand. Like, it's
I
impossible
mean,
for
they could get rid of their nuclear program, but that would be detrimental to their civilians because they're using it legitimately for like power and shit like that, right? So that'd be rough, but they could maybe do that, and then they could stop sponsoring state terrorism. But even if they just stopped doing that right now, nobody would believe them. What are they going to show us the receipts? Like, look, we stopped financing Hezbollah. Like, even if they stopped, like legitimately stopped, no one's going to believe them.
and Hezbollah still gets enough money and religious donations that they'd still be financed to be a threat to Israel annexing any part of
Right,
Lebanon.
but like,
So
if
it's
we
like,
if we just remove all of the things that people say about Iran that's bad, primarily the nuclear bomb and the financing of proxies and terrorists. If you took those out of the picture, I still don't think that they would get any sanction relief. Like, that's just the strategy. I think the strategy is like overthrow their government and reinstall democracy or some semblance of a democracy there. I think that's the true end game there.
we got to get another monarch in there.
Heshemite kings.
No, man, we got to get a Shah. We can't put an Arab king in there.
Oh, crazier things have happened.
That would be like some 14th century shit right there.
Yeah.
Because they threw the Arabs out,
Yeah.
and that's why they became predominant, because they were Sunni first,
Right.
but when they became Shia, they were invaded by the Arabs, and they tossed them out, and they converted the Shia later on to like make a clear difference between to make political unity, because that's how a lot of these religions in the Middle East work. It's more so like not a matter of, I mean, this is religions everywhere, not just the Middle East. Like, religion becomes way more of a political tool when it comes to Catholics and Protestants in the 1600s, and the Sunnis and Shias, and I mean,
Forever.
in recent time, and I guess you can go back to when they initially divided, but a lot of times, just these these sects of religion are always used for some type of political reason. Like, even Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia was used for consolidating, giving like political order and political meaning to the Saudi family,
Right.
for them to create a monarchy. Because in order for them to create a monarchy, you need to be ordealed from God to create that monarchy. So they used that hard line of Islam to justify their rule in that country. So like the Shia was that they were predominantly Sunnis in the Arab world, and they wanted to make a clear difference between the Persians and the people who lived in Iran, and also the Sunnis who lived outside of those areas. So I don't even know what point I was saying.
I don't know. You lost me.
I lost myself too.
Maybe we can talk about something else. This is a topic that I'm interested in by quite a bit. Have you recently seen the news about the Pentagon releasing some UFO tapes?
I'd heard about that.
So actually, I have it, and
It was a big boy.
Yeah, this is more of a reason for me.
It was a flying big boy.
Yeah, so this is more of a reason for me to like test out the video capabilities on our live stream, but it is a topic that I like quite a lot. So I'll just play the video again. If you're listening on a podcast, watch the thing or Google it.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating. Nickel 6-1 Tango, Roger, oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting. Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at that, man. Look at it fly!
So these guys seem to be having a really fucking good time about it.
What is it, son? I don't know, sir, but it looks like a giant dick. Look at that starboard. Oh my god, it looks like a huge pecker. You ever know what that's from?
No.
It's from Austin Powers, the spy.
Oh yeah. How could I forget? That's funny.
When they're like, "Oh my god, it looks like my husband's one-eyed Willie."
Yeah. Yo, so like that first one, I think they call it like the top, right? It looks like a fucking top, like a spinning top, and it was like rotating on an axis in a weird way. And like, honestly, this is not like new news. Like, I'm pretty hip to the UFO stuff, and we've had this, the evidence for at least a couple of years. But what's interesting about it is that the Pentagon is like acknowledging it, that it's real, at least that the footage is real, and that they don't know what it is. And also, interestingly enough, they said that this is all we got. This is all the UFO stuff that we have, which I think is pure bullshit. But yeah, man, what do you think? Do you think it's real?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You think aliens are real?
Hey, man, it matches the time right now. We're all getting there's COVID-19. There is I mean, this would have been from years ago though, right?
Yeah.
No, so it doesn't match the times.
Well, I mean, I have been reading a lot of reports about increases in UFO sightings during the coronavirus, and I've been seeing a bunch
Increasing in photon sensors coming in from radioactive galaxies that are far away. That's what our world's largest telescope read. Wow.
Well, I mean, we are at least the internet is telling me that there are more, but part of this could just be like people are sitting at home and bored, and they're just looking out their window or whatever, and then they notice a UFO when maybe if they had something to do, they wouldn't have noticed it before. Part of it could just be that the people are bored at home and they're faking shit.
And they're smoking too much weed.
Right. And part of it could be maybe we're actually like a fucking zoo, and like the UFOs are just like watching what's going on with us right now. Like, why did all the people just stop going outside? Like we could be on a National Geographic or a Galactic Geographic show for them, and like the alien Sir David Attenborough is like, and as we see here, the Homo sapiens, they are sheltering in place. They seem to be experiencing a virus of some kind, a novel coronavirus, if you will. Like, so they're probably just watching this. I don't know.
Let's go to this is boring. Let's go to the Sahara of Africa and look at lions more. The water buffaloes. Have you ever seen? Do you watch South Park?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Did you ever see the episode where Earth is a TV show? Mm-hmm. It's a reality TV show for aliens.
Yep. Just like that.
And it gets
That's exactly
it's called
what I mean.
Canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're getting at.
Just exactly like that. And I mean, like, there is some legitimacy. Like, not too long ago, nobody's talking about this anymore, but like in like Colorado, there was like a bunch of drones, like mystery drones that were flying overhead like every day, and thousands of people saw them, and it was like across all of their counties and shit. And to this day, nobody knows what the fuck that was, So there's some cause to think that maybe we're getting some more UFOs, and at least I find it interesting that the Pentagon is finally owning up to the fact that they have some documented evidence of unidentified flying objects. They're not saying that it's aliens, but it's aliens. Anyway, that was a fun story. Let's talk about something else. Remember Captain Crozier? Brett Crozier?
Yes.
Former captain of the USS Theodore Roosevelt?
Yes, the guy who was removed because of his lack of judgment, per se.
Well, that's what the Navy or Modley would say. So, dude was the captain of a super carrier, right? One of 11. Really prestigious position. You don't just put anybody in this job. And they were stationed in Vietnam, and then on their way back, they noticed that a bunch of their sailors were getting coronavirus. So they parked off at Guam. I think it was Guam. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Guam. And, a supercarrier is like a breeding ground. It's like the perfect petri dish for a virus, because while it is very big, there's like over 5,000 sailors on board, and the decks are very, very cramped and close quarters. All the working facilities, like, you're right up against other people. There's a lot of shared, things that you're touching that other people are touching. And there's no such thing as social distancing.
It's like in World War I.
Right. Exactly.
With the Spanish
flu. Exactly. Right.
Because all these guys were stuck in a ship together, and by the time they got to Europe, and based off the article last week we were going over from Gareth Porter on the Spanish flu possibly starting out in Kansas, which is
it's likely
pretty popular,
yeah.
which is likely. There's other theories of where it came from,
right?
But if it's true, then they were stuck on a ship on their way to Europe with a flu that eventually
morphed
and spread out to a lot of different guys, and that eventually spread out to even more guys once they were in the trenches.
Right. So like I said, this is like a perfect place for a virus to spread, and Captain Crozier, he was like, all right, we're fucked. Like, so he writes an angry letter to his superiors about like, we have to evacuate this ship. We got to get it cleaned up. And one of the impactful things that he said was that, like, we're not at war. Sailors don't have to die, which I totally agree with, right? I think it's really, really, like, very irresponsible for our servicemen to die and it not have been a result of combat. It's sad when they die because of combat, but like that's expected, And so that letter, he happened to CC like 30 people and it got leaked. They weren't blaming him on leaking it. Like they didn't say that he leaked it, but they said that the way that he went about the situation was just like poor judgment and blah, 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 yada, 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 bullshit. At least in my opinion, it was bullshit. So this dude, the head of the Navy, his name is, he's a Trump appointee. It's Modley. He's the acting Navy secretary. He basically canned him. He's like, all right, you're gone. And then he had the fucking balls to fly out and like be on the deck of the ship and give a speech to his crew members and talk about how Crozier was like stupid and basically made disparaging comments against Crozier. Like, talk about like bad taste. Like, you shit can somebody for a reason that I don't believe is legit. And then you have the balls to go and talk shit to his former, crew that he, talk shit about him. Like, that's not cool. Anyway, this whole thing prompted a pretty big backlash, and Moldy didn't apologize, but he like kind of said like, oops, I shouldn't have said it that way, but also I believe everything I said. Anyway, it looks like he's maybe gonna get his job back, so that's cool. But like, it's not a great look for the Navy right now, to be honest.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out like what is the argument on the side of the Navy of them sacking them, because I've heard that the reason was because of lack of judgment and he possibly put the guys on the ship at risk. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Like how do they put those guys at risk?
I've not read the part where it says that Crozier put them at risk. And if they had the balls to say that, like, that doesn't make logical sense. If anything, he was trying to help his crew. Right, he was trying to get support from his superiors to like evacuate the ship, clean it up, and like cut down on these like the infection spreading, because this is bad, right? It was the Navy put these seamen at risk by not responding fast enough.
No, it makes sense to me. I'm just
they didn't have a good reason. What he did was he pissed off the wrong person, Like, he stepped on his boss's toes, and not necessarily in that email, but when the email got leaked to the media. The moment everybody read this fucking email, that made the Navy look bad, and it made whoever his boss was look bad. And that's why they got rid of him.
It fucked with the political system.
Right. It fucked with their pecking order, And then when they shit canned him, Moldy had to go and fuck it up, which I'm glad he did, frankly, because it means that Crozier might get his job back. He had to go and, be a little bitch about it, like talk shit behind this guy's back to his crew. Like, shut up, dude, And now they're going to give him his job back, and I think that's the right thing to do. But generally speaking, this whole thing just makes the Navy look bad in general. It looks like they don't have their shit together.
I was watching that, and it seemed like the media was taking Crozier's side.
They were for sure
from the beginning. A lot of that has to. I'm not going to jump to any partisan.
No. Honestly, the media was very biased in favor of Crozier. And not in favor of Moldy, who is a Trump appointee. So like you can have that MSN.
That's kind of like the MSNBC narrative.
Yeah,
where
like you can.
There you go. But I don't feel like making like partisan arguments. No.
But like I read the letter that he wrote. Like, so independently of what the media was saying, like I read that letter, and yeah, he used some strong words, and yeah, he suggested some radical shit like completely evacuating the ship and shit. But like in the context of what's going on right now, I saw that that was the right move, right? Should he have CC'd 30 people? Probably not, but like that's not a reason to shit can him, you know? So
You put the wrong person on an email that can ruin your career.
for Crozier, apparently that's true, you know?
For a lot of people, for corporate structures as well. You CC the wrong person. Oh fuck. I didn't need to do that.
Right.
I need that person to hear what I was undermining what he said. But yeah, it as soon as that story jumped out, like the media definitely jumped on his back, and he was getting pretty positive press. But that's kind of like the story, the narrative right now is that everyone who is well, first you brought up a pretty surprising, not a surprising, but a benchmark that we hit as far as passing casualties in the Vietnam War.
Oh yeah. So different topic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So apparently, U.S. coronavirus deaths has now surpassed the U.S. Vietnam War deaths. So Vietnam was pretty bad. I think everyone can agree with that, right? A lot of people died.
Bubba
died. Lieutenant Dan lost his legs.
Something jumped up and bit me.
All right, check this. It's been not even 3 months since we first recorded like the first known death of coronavirus, and we've already lost more lives than the Vietnam War. Vietnam War was 58,220 people died, like troops died, but that was over 20 years in Vietnam. And we did this.
That's how long they stretch out those casualty numbers. They do it from the 50s.
Yeah. But over 20 years, 58,220 Americans died in Vietnam. And in 3 months, what are we at right now? I'm going to pull up the most recent number as of right now. So it's Thursday at 11:13 p.m. Coronavirus.
It's Wednesday.
Oh, my bad. Wednesday.
Days are merging into each other.
Yeah, who knows what the fuck. Okay, we are at... Got all these fucking windows in my way. 61,472 deaths. So we beat this by quite a bit.
Fake news.
Fake news. No, it's very much real news. So interesting stats on this. So not just like the raw death numbers. So the death rate from the coronavirus in America is also considerably higher. The rate is... Well, actually, let's talk about that in 1968. So 1968, which was the deadliest year for the U.S. in terms of like deaths in Vietnam, the death toll that year was 16,899, and it was about half the rate. So 8.5 troops were killed for every 100,000 U.S. residents. So 8 out of 100,000, or what's that, 0.08 out of 1,000 or some shit like that. So 8.5 out of every 100,000 U.S. residents. Right now, coronavirus kills 17.6 people per 100,000 residents.
The thing is, though, I have no doubt that people are dying. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not one of these people who is like, oh, people aren't dying from coronavirus. Like, I'm taking it pretty seriously. But I think that the death rate, you're talking about I think more people have coronavirus than we initially have estimated.
Yeah, we're at over 1 million confirmed cases, but there's probably
a lot more than 1 million people. So I think if they did the math over the confirmed cases of coronavirus, mm-hmm. the mortality rate would be lower than what it is.
No, but see what I just spoke about is
I know
the rate per capita, like deaths per capita.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you did, but with the deaths per capita, I guess I don't know.
I mean, it's higher.
I'm tired.
Here's another one. All right, so nationwide death tolls for coronavirus surpassed 2,000 per day on 6 days this month. The highest death toll on any day in Vietnam during the Vietnam War was January 31st, 1968. During the Tet Offensive, 246 U.S. personnel were killed.
But here's the thing. So I'm gonna just play devil's advocate right
Sure.
now. And I haven't really been following like the disease part of coronavirus too closely, to be completely honest, or like the death rates. So I'm speaking out of probably a good amount of ignorance. But what I've been hearing is that a lot of hospitals are being pressured into tagging people as coronavirus deaths when they could have died of something else, but they just happen to have coronavirus. Like they happen to have like the antibodies or whatever. I don't know med stuff. So they had coronavirus infected in them, and they may have died of like cancer or something, or died of heart disease or heart attack. But since they had coronavirus,
Yeah, for sure.
it counts as a coronavirus death.
Yeah, I mean, I think
So that
it's a
has
legitimate
that
question
has
to ask. I think that's a legitimate question to ask, right? But one thing that we have to remember is that coronavirus is still, like, how it affects the human body is still largely unknown, right? We know what symptoms it gives you, but we're seeing people's blood work come out now, and it really fucks with a lot of different systems in your body, right? So if you had cancer, as an example, and you got coronavirus, like, yeah, you can make a case that, like, oh, they had cancer, they were going to die anyway, right? But coronavirus definitely did not help, and that definitely pushed them over the edge, right? Same thing with like the like coronary heart disease.
Well, we
right?
don't
Like
know.
getting it, we don't know, but the evidence that we're seeing so far shows a correlation between the two. Same thing with coronary heart disease. I was talking about this, when we were talking about Kim Jong-Un and how he definitely has high risk for coronary heart disease. And if he had coronavirus, this could potentially exacerbate that, right? Now, I think it's a fair question to ask, and we still don't know the full extent of it. But I think, as an overabundance of caution, it's fair to say if you have coronavirus and you died, it's fair to say that coronavirus contributed to your death. It's totally fair to say that. And to be clear, there's a lot of also conspiracy theories about people who like died of a gunshot wound, and they're saying, "Oh, it's coronavirus." That's not what we're talking about, and that's also bullshit.
Well, I don't know. I've heard people say that, but like,
It's
I don't.
bullshit.
I think they were being facetious when they said that.
Yeah.
Like, if I died of a gun bullet wound and I had coronavirus, would you label me a death from coronavirus? I think they were being facetious in that way, but I think there is some truth to that argument. Like, what I'm really curious to see is like, what is the overall number of people dying of health related issues over the past couple of months? Like, what is the mortality rate in general for like all of the diseases that people have, which include like cancer, heart disease,
Yeah, I mean, that's statistics I'd
Alzheimer's,
have
old
to
age.
spend a
Like,
little bit of time digging up for you.
that's what I'd want to see, and I'd want to compare the overall death rate of people in this country, compared to like other years. Like, look at like the obesity rate, and just like see as a whole, how did COVID-19 add to the general mortality rate of the country? That's the kind of like what I would want to look at this point, because like I would imagine, based off how many people who have died, or maybe how many elderly people who are in their 80s or older, who may have lived for a couple more years but ended up getting sick and dying. It's kind of like it's kind of like an explosion of a pipeline. Like, I guess if you're in sales, you could relate to this.
Right.
Like, imagine if you have a sales pipeline and you're trying to close people in a particular quarter, and then you have like some mega deal to close a bunch of people in a particular quarter, and all of your pipeline just closes, and you close out. You have all these sales, which is a metaphor for death. So I'm curious to see what happens there.
So let me
And then
lend a little.
what the next couple of years of that general statistic looks like compared to like the overall
Yeah. So
statistic of people
let me
dying
lend to your
of
argument.
natural causes.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me
Or
lend to your argument a little bit
that's
here.
the word I was looking for.
Here's what I would. Here's where and when I would start to agree with you. If you take a look at what is the average rate of death for, say, I don't know, coronary heart disease, right? So let's say if we looked at that trend and we say, okay, normally we would see 5,000 deaths a month from coronary heart disease, right? Like if that was the average, right? And we looked at that trend and then we looked at it during the coronavirus time. If that number went down, then you could make a slight correlation to the fact that they're overcompensating on coronavirus, right? So you could say, oh, coronary heart disease deaths fell, but coronavirus deaths rose. There's probably some spillover there, right? However, if we started seeing the trend and we saw that people who died from coronary heart disease didn't change or changed very nominally up or down, and coronavirus was up in that same month, then it would prove, or at least correlate, that there are, in fact, genuine new deaths happening as a result of coronavirus and that there isn't an overcompensation. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know what those numbers are, so I'll leave that up to the statisticians. Maybe I'll dig it up, though. I guess the last thing that I want to say, and I kind of pointed this out last time we spoke about this matter. Last time we talked about this, I said that we had already eclipsed last year's flu season, which was 8 months long, and it was approximately 34,000. And this is the last time we talked about this. I feel like it was like a week ago. Maybe 2. Looking at it now, the deadliest flu season in the last 10 years was 2017-2018. And there were 61,000 influenza-related deaths nationally reported to the CDC. And that was also over an 8-month period. And we're already at 61,000 deaths for coronavirus in like less than 3 months. So that's like a really close comparison. So like forget about Vietnam War, right? Those are completely different things. It's just like an interesting thing to compare.
Well, I mean, comparing like a health crisis to a war is
it's
pretty hard.
It's not a fair comparison. It's just an interesting thing to compare.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you something that has been canceled due to COVID-19.
Sports?
Not sport. Well, sports. Sports ball.
Sports ball.
I was telling you my friends who gamble a lot are like, what the fuck do we do? Like,
what do we gamble on?
What do we gamble on? And they're gambling on. I suggested just gamble on like the price of oil, on oil futures contracts.
Yeah.
But I think that's too risky. They're all gambling on Russian table tennis.
Is that now canceled?
No, it's like one of the few things that's going on. Russian table tennis.
Okay.
So that's the move. They tried doing it on esports, but they esports isn't fun apparently. I don't know why. Esports didn't work out for some reason. But the New York primary.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like sports, though, when you think about it, you know?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, no, I was pissed about this. So, yeah, the New York by the way, New York Board of Elections, the Democratic Board of Elections, have decided to cancel New York State's Democratic primary. So what does this mean? Danny, who cares? You know, everybody dropped out, and it's just Creepy Joe. I get it. But it's not about the fact that everyone dropped out. It's the fact that there are other people that are still on the ballot despite the fact that they dropped out. Namely, one Bernie Sanders. So if you remember when Bernie Sanders dropped out, he made a pretty interesting speech where he said, and he asked his supporters to continue to vote for him Why? Well, because the Democratic National Convention will happen, and during the Democratic National Convention, they set the tone or like the script for the Democratic National Platform, right? And this is true of like Republicans too, right? The rules might be slightly different, but the general idea is this. People who have more delegates will help shape the platform for the party. If you have more delegates, you get more of a say, more of a voice. And so Bernie was hoping to collect lots and lots of delegates in New York, and I think that's probably was going to be the case. He's already polling very high in the state. And he was hoping to use that as a way to, promote his leftism and his communism, as some people might put it. No, I quite like it. The reason why I'm pissed is because of the reason why they're doing it. And when Bernie dropped out, you asked me the question, do I think, there was some shady foul play by the DNC this time around? And I originally said, no, I don't think so. There was some shady shit in 2016, but, now I think he just basically lost fair and square. And part of the reasons why I said that was because of factors around, the other candidates that dropped out and supported Biden, Elizabeth Warren not dropping out when she should have, and a bunch of other factors. But basically he didn't, I thought he wasn't winning fair and square. But now I'm starting to change my tune because they're saying that the reason why they canceled the New York State primary is because of coronavirus, because they don't want to have people standing in line and, violating social distancing and yada, yada. I get it. But there is still such a thing as mail-in ballots. And New York does a pretty good job at absentee voting. But they're saying that this is a non-essential business, and so all of the operations around it, the people have to send out all of that mail and like organize that it's a non-essential thing and they don't want to risk coronavirus over it. I personally think that they're using this as a neat excuse to not give Bernie and his supporters and the people who vote very progressively a platform when the convention ultimately happens.
Well, maybe we're just trying to get over the curb. Come on, it's coronavirus. You got to do your part. You can't be going outside.
Well, yeah, you don't have to go outside to mail in a ballot. Stick that shit in your mailbox.
Not everyone knows how to send mail.
Well,
we got to make this accessible to everyone.
That's
everyone
their problem.
Has a voice in a democracy. Not everyone has access to stamps.
Actually, postage paid in New York State.
Not everyone has access to a mailbox. A mailbox would mean they have to go outside. Sending letters is dangerous. We got to curb. Want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
So, do you watch Tiger King, right?
I've seen one episode, but I get it.
You get it with
Carol fucking Baskins. Yeah, I get it.
Carol Baskin is the biggest terrorism in the exotic animal world has ever seen.
Yeah.
So on Twitter, Team Joe has been trending, or Team Joe is trending, because everyone's like, going, if this woman did not kill her husband, then I feel sorry for her because she is being attacked. But when Team Joe was trending, Joe Biden thought that was something for him. He was like, oh, Team Joe.
I mean, in fairness, they probably should have been more specific, but I could see.
Oh, Team Joe.
Maybe Joe Biden should pick Joe Exotic as his running mate.
Joe Exotic already ran as a libertarian.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, I'm pretty pissed at that. I think there's some shady shit going on there. I don't buy strictly coronavirus. There was ways around that. They were already planning to do absentee ballots. They were already planning delaying the voting. So like, it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. And it's like not great, like that means that there's gonna be plenty of people who are just gonna be disillusioned to voting in general now. The hardcore Bernie bros that don't even get to vote for him in the primary.
Well, that's the DNC for you. All
Yeah. Way to shoot yourselves in the foot.
right. It is. I'm getting like brain dead right now.
No, we've been running for long enough too.
Yeah, we're at what, an hour and 40 minutes?
Yep.
All right, so let's wrap this one up. There was some more stuff that we could have discussed today, but I guess we'll have to put a pen in it. But thank you guys for joining for another episode. If you liked it, rate and review the podcast if you're on Apple. And if you're interested in seeing the live stream where it's probably a bit longer and like more visual cues in some parts, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe and like to the YouTube channel, and then you'll get a notification. You'll get it an hour, or not an hour, but you'll get it the night before. So you'll get it around 9 o'clock. So you'll have it before people get it in the morning. But yeah, it's fun. Anything to say?
Nope.
All right. Peace, guys.
See ya.